Hello, welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto. We are off center for a reason. I'll get that in a second. But today's topic is whether or not 0.0% financing on an automobile purchase is a per se scam. And the reason I say this is I've told you that I recently bought a vehicle, Ford Explorer, and I got it with 0.0% financing. And I mentioned that a couple times in the different videos I did. And I got a lot of people sending me comments and notes and, hey, congratulations on the new vehicle. But a guy commented this morning and said, Steve, by the way, the crazy part here is that you're such a sucker. You don't realize that you got scammed. You're making videos about how you're an expert on automobile purchases and the law, and yet you don't even see that you got scammed because you fell for one of the dumbest scams in the automotive world, and you don't even get it. Like how bizarre is that? And I said, well, what's a scam? And he goes, 0.0% financing. It's a scam. He goes, you're a sucker that you fell for that. And I said, no. Explain to me what the scam is. I admit I don't know what you're getting at. And at first I thought the guy was trolling me or pranking me. And he goes, no. He goes, the fact is, he goes, 0.0% financing is a scam per se. You got ripped off. And the fact you don't understand that makes you an idiot. And I said, okay, but we can go around in circles all day long. Can you at least explain to me what the scam is? And he goes, it's easier for me to do this. And he recommended I go watch a video by a guy in Australia, which should be your first indication that something's wrong. Because Australia, for instance, doesn't even have a domestic automotive presence. They actually have to import all their vehicles because they don't build cars in Australia. But that may or may not make a difference. They still sell cars in Australia. So I watched a couple of videos to see what this is getting at, and it turns out that the guy in the video is talking about something completely different. But here's the problem. The fact that somebody would actually believe that you get ripped off in America when you accept 0.0% financing instead of going the higher interest rate is insanity. So the reason we're off-centered, as I mentioned earlier, is that I decided it was time for me to break out the whiteboard. Now, I mentioned a long time ago that I bought this thing. And I forgot that I had it, plus I'm lazy. I need to mount it someplace. But I need to use a whiteboard today to explain myself. So I'm going to use the whiteboard. I hope this is on camera. We'll see. And remember, the guy's position is that 0.0% financing, and you get to see how I write now, what my handwriting looks like, is per se a scam. And that's what the guy said to me in the comment section before it got heated and I finally had to delete the thread. So he goes, it is a per se scam. It is per se a scam. 0 points. Like I said, before I'd watched the video of the guy that he was referring me to, I tried to get him to explain that to me. And he goes, no, per se, 0.0% financing is a scam. And I said, well, wait a second, but isn't it ideal to try to get a lower interest rate? And so just so you know what I'm getting at here, is that you have to understand that in America, okay, if you go to, note to self, use markers before on camera. So if you go to borrow money in America, they charge you interest unless you find somebody who doesn't charge you interest. And so interest rates can vary. You've heard of, interest rates on different things, right? Interest rates. I shouldn't explain that to you. So the worst interest rate that you can be charged in most places in America is 24.99%. And that's because some places actually call 25% usurious, okay? And usurious means bad. And presumably on a scale of numbers, there's an important number called 0. And I'll draw a line through because that makes it look cool. So here's a scale of interest rates, okay? 0 at one end and 24.99% at the other end that are presumably available to people who want to borrow money. Now you might say, wait a second, Steve, is it possible to have a negative interest rate? In other words, could you get a better, lower rate than 0? And I'm glad you asked me that because that's a question that people who talk about numbers might ask. And, to understand numbers, we all know that there are, we'll draw a line here and say that's 0. And if you go above the number, you have what are called positive numbers. And if you go below the numbers, hey, I got 4 magic markers. I'm going to use them. If you go below 0, you are heading into what's called negative numbers. Now, negative numbers are funny in that sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. So if you have 5 apples, and I take 6 apples from you, how many apples do you have? Well, some people say you have minus 1 apple. But of course, I can't take 6 apples from you. You only have 5. So in some ways negative numbers are unusual like that. But the question is, could you have a negative interest rate, an interest rate better than 0.0? Is that possible, that you'd have an interest rate better than 0.0? And of course, in theory, you could. Okay, so let's suppose that beyond 0, you got into a minus 5% interest rate, in theory, right? In theory. Well, the problem with that, of course, is that if you lend me money and you're paying me minus 5%, the longer I take to pay it off, the less I pay you. Or you're going to lose money in the process no matter what, even if I pay you back all the money I owe you because it's offset by the negative interest rate. But it doesn't even make any sense. So presumably 0 is 0.0, is the lowest interest rate you can get. But remember, the man said financing at 0.0 is per se a scam. So again, keeping in mind that there is a scale starting at 0, which is the least you could charge somebody in interest, up to 24.99, which is the cap. There's you number close to 25, but not quite touching it asymptotically. And of course, in theory, if you went to like a loan shark or somebody, you might get an interest rate greater than 25%. But at that point, we're talking about like breaking limbs and stuff if you don't pay the money back. So we're talking about this right here in a consumer setting in America, right? So we've all heard that people have bought cars, for instance, and they have interest rates they advertise on TV where they'll say like, you can get 1.9% or 5% or, 12.5%, right? They're dead center. But again, like I said, I would have assumed that human nature being what it is, and I want to save money, and I want you to make less money off me. I want to pay you less money. In that typical rational transaction that we have as consumers, if 24.99 is bad, you'd think moving the needle to the left would be good. Okay, so over here is bad, and over here is good. And again, that seems to be a scale that should also line up on a 1-to-1 correlation. That is, as you head to the left, the numbers get lower as they get better. Okay, again, I'm just trying to explain to you the rationale as to why I feel the way I do about why I want to pay a lower interest rate. Now, if you watch the video, and I'm not recommending that you have to do this, you can just believe me that I'm telling you the truth. But I'm going to have to summarize some of what the man said. But basically what he says is, he goes, if a manufacturer is advertising that we're going to sell you a car at 0.0% interest, what they're going to do is there's going to be what's called an MSRP, which is a manufacturer's suggested retail price, and that's going to be some dollar value, which I will denote with X, okay? And that's an American dollar, but an Australian dollar, they also use those as well. And there's, I'm sure, some correlation there. I don't know what the exchange rate is, so we'll just say that we're doing everything in American dollars and American numbers in case there's a difference there too. So he says that if they're going to sell you a car at MSRP at X dollars, if they're going to sell it to you at 0.0%, actually there's no need to put that second one there. So 0.0%, he goes, what they're going to really do is they're actually going to jack the price of the MSRP up to make up the lost interest. Okay? So assuming that you were going to buy this car and you walked in off the lot and you're going to simply pay cash for the MSRP, he goes, everyone knows you can negotiate these prices around, right? So if you say, I'm paying cash, what's the best deal you can give me in that car? He goes, they'll give you a better deal on the car because you got cash. You can negotiate. He goes, but if you walk in and say, I want to buy that car for 0.0% financing, he goes, what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, but you have to pay MSRP, right? And he says, so what they do when they are getting ready to do one of these promotions, in recognition of the fact that a lot of people are going to walk in and go, I want that deal, is they're going to take the MSRP that they had before the promotion and add in an amount to make up for the lost interest. Okay? And so he goes, if you take that amount and that amount, you now get a new MSRP. And he says the blue MSRP in this setting is going to be greater than the MSRP before they did their promotion. Boy, you know, if only these things could be erased as if they were dry. Wait a second. So again, he says, if you compare the MSRP that they did before the promotion, that's this number, and recognizing they're going to lose money when they go 0.0, they take the amount of money they'd lose at 0.0 and add it to this MSRP, and now it comes up with this bigger MSRP, which has got the built-in profit. So he says that when they're running a 0.0% finance and you walk in off the street and go, I want that deal, if they sell you the car at MSRP and 0.0% finance, he goes, it's going to be, and he actually makes a statement that it's worse than if you simply negotiated, but again, let's just assume he's right on that. He's basically saying, look, you know, the amount of money that you're going to pay here has been inflated so much that if you take that 0.0% deal, you're getting robbed. And he says what you're smarter doing is walking in and just saying, screw this, I don't even want to talk about that. I want to take this price here and negotiate off that and then go finance it at a regular number. As if these numbers can't be made to equal out somehow, but I don't know. But again, that's what the man in the video says regarding how this all works. But the problem, of course, is, as I mentioned previously, that I bought my car using A-Plan, which I mentioned 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different videos. And for those of you who don't know, okay, A-Plan is Ford's employee purchase, okay? And I get that because my brother worked there for many, many years. In fact, he designed the suspension, or worked on the suspension teams that designed the suspensions in many of the Explorers I had previously. So it's a Ford employee discount plan, okay? And the thing about A-Plan is it is a fixed price. And it is fixed at a certain number, and I do not know what the number is, but it's a certain number discount off of dealer invoice, okay? So the thing is that we all know that dealer invoice is a number that's kind of real, but not kind of real, in that dealers don't actually pay full invoice for their vehicles. There's a holdback and a bunch of other stuff like that. Don't need to get into that. But the point is that there's a fixed price. Okay, that fixed price is what you get when you walk into A-Plan. Now, I've mentioned to you before, I've done research on this. I even interviewed a guy specifically on this, who is a professional car buyer. He's Tom McParland, and he actually goes around and helps people buy cars, and he'll negotiate. He knows what kind of deals he can get on cars. He hunts them down and shops for people. That's what he does for a living. I told him, I said, Tom, I've been offered the ability to get a car, Ford A-Plan, and I want to buy a new Explorer. I go, could you get me a better deal, or could anybody get me a better deal by negotiating off of MSRP and just negotiating a better deal? And he goes, no, absolutely not. He goes, don't even go there. He goes, you're going to get a better deal off A-Plan. And I go, are you sure? He goes, absolutely. And he goes, Ford A-Plan is one of the best in the business. The amount of discount that you get off of the dealer invoice, he goes, is substantial. And he goes, there's 2 things about it. One is, he goes, it's such a big discount. He goes, I don't think anybody can go in and negotiate that deal. The dealerships don't make enough money on a deal at A-Plan. They get compensated by Ford. Ford kicks them a little bit of money to take care of the deal. But quite frankly, he goes, that's one of the best deals out there. Okay? So here's the problem. Getting back to the Australian man who says that, well, when they're giving away cars at 0.0, what they do to make up the loss is they add in prices to the MSRP to make this up. Except that, as pointed out, the A-Plan price that I'm getting is based off of a discount from MSRP, or dealer invoice. And here's the important thing. Anybody walking into a Ford lot today to buy a car cannot get the A-Plan. Now, they can try to negotiate off of MSRP all day long, and they might even be able to get a vehicle for, a substantial discount off of MSRP. But here's the thing. Ford right now is offering 0.0% financing to everybody. Okay? But it's not that they're guaranteeing that you're going to get that when you walk in the door, but this is Ford Motor Credit. Okay? Right now, you walk in to a Ford Motor dealer and you want to buy a vehicle from them. If you've got good credit and can work it out, they have interest rates as low as 0.0%. It's Ford Motor Credit. Now, here's the deal. As the man in the video points out, and as the guy commenting to me says, well, they don't make any money off that financing, so obviously they're making it up somewhere else. Yeah, I assume they are. But the point is that they didn't jack the price up when I bought the car to make up for that price. I would assume Ford Motor and Ford Motor Credit have some kind of cozy relationship, perhaps because they're both Ford something or other. But they price the car and you can get this huge discount. And it just so happens at the same time they've got that deal going, they've got 0.0% financing. Now, did Ford jack the price up on this vehicle to make up for people like me who get the 0.0% financing? Well, even if they did, it doesn't matter because this number is the same for everybody. So the notion that you should be able to walk in and simply go, oh, I want to negotiate off this price and not take that, instead of negotiating off this price, and it's like, wait a second, it's a fixed price. It's the dealer invoice minus a couple points, and that's what you're paying. That's what anybody would pay when they're getting a plan. So what options do you have if you are shopping in America for a vehicle that's a plan, like I was? Well, you can walk in the dealership and hand them your A-plan papers and say, I want to buy a car A-plan. They'll say, okay, we'll run your credit and see what we can get you. Assuming you've got a credit score that's decent, they're going to offer you some financing through Ford Motor Credit. Oh, by the way, you can finance through anybody you want. You can finance through a credit union if you want to. So what's the best rate you can get from your credit union? I don't know, 3 points, 5 points? It's going to vary based on your credit score. But let's assume that they say, well, we can get you 3% on a new car buy, okay? Well, Ford Motor Credit's got 0.0. They had 1.9, I know because they offered that to me also on a different financing structure. They got 2.9%. But ironically, you'll notice that all those numbers are still less than 3%. And getting back to our initial position on this whiteboard, you'll notice, again, that I was discussing earlier, that 0 is the lowest number on this scale, 24.99 is the highest number on this scale, and presumably we're trying to drive the needle to the left, okay? So when you get here on the needle, and you get to 2.9%, it's lower than what your credit union offered you at 3, although they may have offered you 2.9. But the point is, should you stop there because that makes you a smart shopper? Or should you go to 1.9? Wait a second. Shouldn't you go to 0? Because 0 is to the left on that scale of 1.9, 2.9, or 3. So which of those makes you the smart shopper and which of them makes you the sucker? So getting back to the initial comment that the commenter made to me, he goes, Steve, 0.0% financing is per se a scam. And when I asked him why, and he simply said, you have to watch this video to understand why, you realize that that logic that the Australian was using was based entirely, apparently, on the automotive market in Australia. And again, like I said, as far as I can tell, and what I've heard recently, Australia imports all their cars because all the car companies are shut down. So I don't know what's going on down there. But quite frankly, the presence they have is not the same as the presence that we have here in America. And I'm here to tell you that I am within an hour drive of GM's world headquarters, Chrysler's world headquarters, Ford's world headquarters. And there's something about being that close to these businesses that makes them very, very competitive. Now, I do know that most of these deals are available elsewhere. I'm simply pointing out that might have something to do with it. But again, the idea that, oh, they jack up this rate and build in this gigantic buffer that you can negotiate out if you go with a higher interest rate on your loan, that might be true in Australia. So getting back to the original concept, the man said that 0.0% financing is per se a scam. Obviously, it's not. If you want to get a lower interest rate, zero is lower than everything else. So, what might be true in Australia, I don't know. I can't speak to Australia. But, like I said, the guy put up a video. The headline is catchy. The title's catchy. It's clickbaitish because it doesn't really apply to everything. And as noted, I got a very good deal on my car and I got good financing. And the idea that, oh, Steve, you got ripped off because you got such a low interest rate. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have negotiated it higher, right? Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye bye.